All right, guys, welcome to hour number 2 on this 19th day of December, 2 days before the end of the world, 2012. Tuesday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday. Wednesday. Yeah, Friday's the end of the world. All right, joining me now is back again is Rob Hanus of preparednesspodcast.com. .com or .net?
ThePreparednessPodcast.com.
Oh, the Ohio State.
Right.
Preparedness.
Yeah, I don't know who's got preparednesspodcast.com, but I'm thepreparednesspodcast.com.
Well, we don't want not the. We want the preparednesspodcast.com. So thepreparednesspodcast.com. You can go over there and check out his great information. Putting out a couple podcasts a week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am 2 to 3 a week, although I am probably for the rest of this year not going to put one out, taking a little bit of a rest and sabbatical. Got some friends, family coming in for
well, they're friends too, I hope.
Of the year. Oh, of course, yes, but you know how the differentiation goes.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, because everybody's got family. Listen, there's all kinds of headlines I'd like to talk about, but I'm not gonna because every time we have you on here, I burn up too much time talking about current events, and we end up taking one or two questions when we usually have people holding on the line. So if you have questions on preparedness or prepping, period, get on the phones, 877-342-6673. Any category any question as long as it has to do with the category of preparedness. And it doesn't have to be a question. It could be a statement. It could be a suggestion. So get on the phone and get your question into Rob. Every time we've had you on, Rob, I think we fill up the phones for the entire program.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We don't get to them, though, but that's good.
Yeah, we do. We get to one, and then the others, hopefully call back. But, here we sit on the eve of the eve of the end of the world.
That's right.
Let me ask you.
It's almost over, so we could talk about whatever you want. It doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't matter. You can't prep for what's coming. So, how's the wife and kids? What are we going to talk about? All right. First of all, give me your take. 2012, December 21st. Even though I watched a video documentary last night on YouTube that says no, it's the 23rd, not the 21st. It takes me back to countless. Since I've been doing the radio program and doing the YouTube videos, I can't even tell you how many end of the world predictions have come and went. We had Harold Camping, who came out with
how long have you been doing the podcasts and stuff, or the videos and stuff?
4 years.
4 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've been into the preparedness aspect of being ready for almost 30 years now, and so I forget all the predictions and forecasts and prophecies that have come and gone. Right. And in fact, I just did a podcast last night, put it out today, titled Doomsday 2012, and it was talking about all the rumors of all the things that were supposed to happen this year. The Planet X, big comets, the planet alignment, the Mayan thing, and you know what? None of it's going to happen. I mean, I'll bet anybody any sum of money it's not going to happen, because I think people it's the same reason they go to like horror flicks. They like to see the fear and the horror, and they like to be scared. And I think people latch on this because, and I think this has been something we've had all through time, bad news travels really fast. Good news travels at a snail's pace, because even if it's completely implausible, people have a tendency to want to believe it or pass it on for one reason or another.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Now, regardless of how you feel about the I guess entertainment value of what has been coined by some pessimism porn, right? Because certainly I've been accused of falling into that category because I'm talking about economic collapse. I'm talking about disasters and geopolitical disasters and World War III and the end of sovereignty and end of freedom, police state, all that kind of thing. And that's very negative. And they're all very, very important reasons on why you should be preparing. So in our genre, because you're in it too, I mean, the folks that gravitate to this genre, some of them, without a doubt, are holding on to this romantic notion that the end of the world is going to be glorious and it's going to be awesome and it's going to be a free for all and it's going to be survival of the fittest and it's going to be anything goes. So certainly if people can attach a romantic notion to something like a collapse, an economic or political collapse, then they will grab on to the predictions of the Mayans and the end of the age 2012. That being said, Rob, look at the world, man. The Mayans just happened to end a calendar at the time that the world is in really, really precarious condition on every aspect, on every front, be it geopolitical, financial, you name it. It seems to be teetering on the edge. All reasons, of course, to consider your preparations for disasters, man-made or otherwise. But it is a heck of a coincidence, you must admit, that the Mayans are called. And not only the Mayans, I mean, the Hopi Indians, and a lot of religions, mainstream religions, talk about current situational events that would point to the end of the world. From a Christian background, I can look at things out of the book of Daniel or other predictive books of the New Testament, even that point to wars, Matthew wars, rumors of wars, that kind of thing. Here we are. I mean, one world government, one world order, 666, mark of the beast, all that. And a lot of people think it's going to be done through financial means, and you can't buy or sell without the mark. And we see headlines of the day that are validating a lot of these predictions made a long time ago.
And I don't mean to discount any of this. This stuff can be a lot of fun to delve into. It can provide a lot of scenario building, a lot of what if. Well, gee, what if this did happen? What if we did have the power grid go down? What if we did have a Red Dawn scenario? What if we did have a comet pass by really quick and mess up the orbits of the moon and stuff? I mean, the brain exercises and the mental exercises that go with that, I think can be important because you're asking those questions. I mean, we're preppers. So the fact that we deal with negativity a lot is part of what we do. I mean, we're not prepping for sunshine and lollipops. We're preparing for disasters. And, most people don't find disasters very cheerful because, they shouldn't be. But that doesn't mean you should be fearful of them either. So I just think there's enough stuff to actually truly be worried about. The government oppression, the increase of massive earthquakes, the increase that we seem to be having on droughts and floods and that sort of climate change things. We do have issues with nuclear war and terrorism. We do have issues with the sun. Even if we had a completely peaceful planet, we still have issues having to deal with massive solar flares and particularly CMEs, coronal mass ejections. We do have the economy to worry about. I mean, there's plenty out there. Pick one and get ready for it, because chances are you'll be prepared enough for everything else if you were wrong on your target, but something else happened. So I think these can provide a lot of brain fodder, a lot of good sort of role playing. What would I do if this happened? What would this happen? And I think when you look at something and it's several years out, it's easy to say, oh yeah, that's kind of okay. I can kind of see that. There was a book called 55-2000. It was about a a magnetic pole shift, and was going to bring in an ice age event to the world on May 5th, 2000. And I remember reading the book about 5 years prior to that, thinking, "Oh, wow, this guy makes a pretty good case. But maybe I should, get someplace safe." And again, that whole thought process, I think, is important for kind of looking to the future and seeing what can happen and trying to figure out how you can best mitigate those effects.
Well, the truth be told, I mean, if the doomsday predictions come true, or if you're sold out to these doomsday predictions, planet Narubu or whatever happening here in 2 days, then you're not prepping, because you're just going to go out. You're going to go out in a blaze of glory along with everybody else. All right, we're going to be back and talk prep, I promise, with Rob Hanus of the preparednesspodcast.com. We'll be right back. Everybody wants to rule the world, but only the Preparedness Podcast can. Welcome back to Wide Awake News. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath. It is the 19th day of December, Wednesday. Callers are welcome at 877-342-6673, 877-342-6673. We do have a question that came vis-a-vis Karen, vis-a-vis Gary. Now it's into my Skype, and I'm going to read it out loud here, and we'll get Rob to talk on this topic. But let me tell you, we have about 70 people in the chat right now. If you have a question in there, keep dumping it in there. Bonnie's monitoring it, so is some other folks in there, and we'll make sure we get your question asked if I miss it in chat. But if you got something you want to talk about for sure, call in 877-342-6673. Rob Hanus, his website is thepreparednesspodcast.com. I have a question for you, and let me see if we got who this is from. We do not. So
Al. Looks like Al.
Oh, okay. I know Al. Big Al. Big Al has a question. One of the areas that hasn't been discussed much is communication. Digital, question mark. Triple trunk, question mark. Also, no talk on medical, trauma, burn supplies. How about some tips? That's a great question. And I do believe, Big Al, that we did dang it, Gary, he dropped a message in there. I do believe that we, last time you were on, Rob, we talked a little bit towards the end of the program about communication. But let's get into that, and then medical supplies or medical prepping. We'll get into that as well.
Well, I actually did a podcast, a two-part podcast, beginning of this month. I think it was beginning of this month. Actually, I think it was just a few days ago. Episode 155 and episode 156 about a family communications plan. And basically, I go over a lot of things for you to consider. You need to have a communication plan for your family or your group, or both if you're have a family and part of a group. And you need to look at all the different ways that you can communicate. And obviously, I think the cell phone is your first line of defense there. You can make voice calls. More importantly, though, you can make texts on them. They go through the admin channel on the cell carriers, so they don't go over the same lines that your phone does. What was that? On the tower. So that message is going to get through. That message is going to get through, even if you have zero. If you have no way of making a phone call from your cell. In a lot of cases, your text will go through. Yeah, and I've actually tested this with a friend who was part of an earthquake in California, and I know all the phone lines were busy and down, but I sent him a text. It was delayed. I think there was about a 15-minute delay before he actually got it, but he did get it, and he was able to text back and let us know that he was okay. So it does work. It is something that I would use, voice, then text, and then I probably would even send an email if I had a data plan. It may not be the most efficient, but if you could say, hey, felt the jolt, I'm alive, heading home, if they were to get that email, at least they would know, if they hadn't been able to get a hold of you any other way, that would bring some peace to let them know that you're okay and what your next plan of action was. You need to have a plan, and that plan pretty much needs to not only spell out how you're going to talk to each other, but who's going to do what and where they're going to be. Because if you can't talk to each other, which if you think about it is most likely what's going to happen, is you're not going to be able to reach your family or your loved ones or your group. You need to know who's going to do what. If you have kids in school, which one of you are going to go pick up the kids? Do the kids know what to do? Do you know what the school's emergency plan is? How long are they going to keep the kids there before they have to release them? A lot of people don't know this because they don't talk about it. But if there's a disaster, your kids aren't going to stay at school forever. Probably until the nighttime comes, and then the teacher's going to go. They have families as well. They can't stay forever. So you need to make sure your kids have a plan if you can't get to them or until you get to them. There are lots of other ways to communicate, but it really comes down to radio. If you can't use your phone, it's about radio. And there's lots of other types of radios out there. You got FRS and GMRS and the MERS channel and stuff. But those are all very, very short-range radios. And quite honestly, the only method of radio communication available to citizens or civilians is ham radio. And even then, you may have some issues because, the little handy talkies, the handheld radios, they're only about 5 watts. And they only transmit so far. They're better because you can use repeaters, but those repeaters may be affected by disaster and stuff. So you have a whole you have to think about this ahead of time. So I mean, we can go on and on here, but I would suggest going to the podcast, going to the website, searching for episode 155. That's part 1, and then episode 156 is part 2, and you can. I've got it all noted down there, all the different information, as well as listen to the podcast. There's a lot of good information there.
Wow, what a pro! Perfect timing. Took us right to the bumper. Gary put in a note in there that even if no matter what your radio is, even if you're just on receiving, it does transmit a little. And I want to break that down a little bit on the backside of this break, then get into maybe some of the medical questions. And then, I might want to just talk about certain conditions that could be from small to large in the reason why we might be using some of these preps sooner rather than later. We're going to be back with Rob Hanus right after these messages. There's a lot of companies. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Rob Hanus is our guest, the Preparedness Podcast. And those listening on Justin TV, they were talking, Gary and Rob were, because they're certainly experts on it, and I am not, on the lineage, I guess, the history of ham radio and how it's certainly been affected by the internet as far as a lot of new young folks coming in to the world of ham radio. But if we are so tied at the hip, right, to modern technology, guys like you and Gary Hendershot are going to be very, very well appreciated in the event of a crisis that brings down the internet, or even maybe a situation where our own government brings down the internet, because the pipeline of communication certainly now, you talked about the cell phone is the first line of communication in the world of prep. Well, obviously the internet is where all of the information is being exchanged right now, and that can be taken away real quickly.
Yeah, it can. And, ham radio has gone and kind of paired itself up with a lot of the internet as far as interconnection and stuff. You can dial in to repeaters over the internet and talk through them. I actually haven't done, but I've seen it done and heard it and stuff. And it's kind of interesting. But the part that bothers me about that is it's dependent on the internet. If the internet goes away, just like the power grid, if the power grid goes away, then everything you've been relying on is gone. And that's one thing I really like about amateur radio, is that it is point-to-point communications with no infrastructure. It's you and the receiving station, and that's all that's needed. If you can get prepared to provide your own power to power the radio and know antenna theory and stuff like that, and you probably need a calling clock, which is basically a schedule of where you're going to be at what time, so you can coordinate. So you don't have to have the radio on all the time, and you can change frequencies based on the time of day and stuff. It works very, very well. Have you
set up any networks like that, Rob? With fellow preppers around the country or your region? I can even see even inside your city. You're setting up these kind of these communication clocks, so that if something happened, you'd be able to touch base.
Well, that's all part of planning. And I have in the past. I don't have any now. And what I do is I have another podcast about MAGs and teams, and a MAG is a mutual assistance group. It is a group of people that basically agree to lend mutual aid or mutual assistance to each other in times of stress or duress or disaster, whatever. And I've been part of those, a few of those throughout the years. They dissolve because either people leave or people die or something like that. And the communication plan is with those people. My wife doesn't really want to become a ham radio operator, so it's very difficult to plan any long range or long term communications with her, because everything else is short term, and if there is no phone. So what we've done is again, it comes down to the plan. I know where she's going to be. I know what she's going to do. She knows what I'm going to do. We have bug out or rally points if she has to evacuate before I get here. I know where she's going to be, and that a lot of the stress from that's created by not being able to communicate.
Right. Right, and that you mentioned that in the last segment. The being able to send a text or a message of any kind that alleviates so much potential anxiety, right? Because if Rob, if for whatever reason you have to spend a day or two or three or a week because of the situation, the crisis at hand, or the disaster at hand, and maybe you're only traveling a distance of 10 miles, but 10 miles in the middle of on the heels of a Category 5 hurricane, or a 9.2 magnitude earthquake, or some kind of other event, 10 miles could be 10 days.
Yeah, sure could. And one thing that everybody should do as far as their plan is you need to establish an out-of-state contact. Because we're not really looking at the end of the world for most things. It's going to be a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, something like that. When the phones are clogged up, you can't call within the region. It's very difficult. But a lot of times you can call long distance, so you can call out of state. So make Grandma or Aunt Chris or Aunt Susie your out of state contact, and everybody calls that person, and they use that person like a bulletin board. So I can't call my wife, but if I can call Aunt Susie, who's in another state, and say, hey, I'm okay, and I'm making my way here. Here's what I'm going to be doing. And so when my wife calls in to the same person, Aunt Susie can tell her, yeah, I heard from Rob, and this is what he's doing, this is what he's doing, and then she can take the bulletin board message from my wife, and so next time I call in, I can get an update. That is probably a very simple and easy communication point that you can make in your plan, because it's one of the things that can work.
All right. Now I want to jump in this segment, or for the rest of this segment, we'll talk about medical prep. We talked about food. And let me mention this now, because it's important, and it's almost Christmas time. Rob and I were introduced through Chris Atkin, byemergencyfoods.com. Guys, it's almost Christmas time. Get over there, and if you're going to send the absolute best gift you possibly could, get over to byemergencyfoods.com and pick out the 72-hour emergency kit. Pick out something that is truly going to be a gift that is going to be worth receiving, especially in the heels of any kind of a disaster. Even, again, Sandy, Katrina, any event that is going to upset the apple cart for more than a day or two. We see what happens when these things occur. People lose their mind, people become hopeless, and you do not want to be out in the midst of all that. So it's almost Christmas. I can't think of a better gift to give somebody. Please support the folks over at byemergencyfoods.com, because they support internet radio and this program, and they're making great connections. So, Rob and I is a prime example of that. Medical preparation. Talk to me. What do you have? I'm going to tell you what I have. First of all, you've seen in videos some of the stuff I carry, and obviously it was woefully inadequate according to the experts at the Preparedness Podcast. But I have multiple first aid kits in multiple locations, and I don't think they're overly, I don't think I'm overly prepared in the realm of medical emergencies, but I have a very thorough first aid kit. But these are canned first aid kits. It's nothing I sat down and penciled out. I need this, that, and the other thing. I just went with off the shelf type supplies. So what is your thought on this? Rob, did you hang up on me?
Sorry, I think I hit the mute button. I said I think it's a good idea. I definitely think you should have some.
Okay, there you have it.
Well, honestly, you should.
I was expecting something along the lines of, you need to download the field manual for self-dentistry in an apocalyptic situation or something like that.
Well, there are books out there where there is no dentist, where there is no doctor. Yeah. A lot of those third world information books are good to have, so that if you are in a third world environment, and that doesn't mean that you've traveled, that just means that your area, your neighborhood has been devastated to a point where there is no care, but yet you do have to render aid. But the thing is that you have to have the training and the knowledge. Right. If you don't know what you're doing, you can actually do a lot more damage. I mean, how many times have you, not you, but the listeners, whoever, have had an injury or an illness or something like, oh, I think something might be wrong. I might be wrong. I don't know if and then, 2 days later it's gone. You're like, oh, it was nothing. But if you would have gone in and done some exploratory surgery or tried some concoctions that may or may have not been dangerous, you could have made things worse. So
absolutely,
you need the knowledge. You need the first aid kit. Start with a good first aid kit. I recommend building your own. There's a lot of information out on the internet. Start with your simple, basic first aid kit. Band-aids, tape, the Curlex or the self-adhesive wrap, gauze pads. You need to have triple antibiotic ointment, stuff like that. Build your own so you know what it is, so you know what you have, and start there. And then you need to have probably CPR and first aid training, and just keep going from there.
All right, we're going to be back with Rob Hanus, more Wide Awake News Radio in just a few minutes. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Final segment of this 2-hour program. Rob Hanus of the Preparedness Podcast is our guest. We're talking preparation. We ended the last segment talking a little bit about medical, and I was telling Rob during the break, if your health is compromised at all, or if you have conditions that require you, and regardless of how you feel about modern medicine, there's a lot of people that are they have to have albuterol in for a rescue inhaler, or they need another form of medication. I think one thing that's smart, Rob, is to make sure that you have an extended period of medication in your preparedness kit and rotate it out as need be. And for some people, some ailments, I mean, that's a matter of life and death. I mean, I know people that are diabetic, and that's a very difficult thing to prepare for because of the shelf life of the product and things like that. But certainly something we need to think about.
Yeah, if you need prescription medicines for whatever, then you should be looking at how you can get a cache on hand. You can look at the over the or the mail order stuff where you can get 90 days ahead. I was talking to somebody not that long ago, and they were basically saying that there is no law that says you can only have 90 days. So if you talk to your doctor and let them know, hey, I'd like to be prepared and I'd like to have this much on hand and rotate it out, you'd probably do pretty well. Now, I know
Absolutely. I've done it.
I've gone to doctors, and not so much getting like diabetic medication or something like that, but just hey, I'd like to have antibiotics, I'd like to have pain meds, I'd like to have whatever. And I haven't had any doctor say no when I go to them and I say, this is what I'm trying to do. I always would say, I'm outdoor a lot. I'm hiking, I'm camping, I'm doing a lot of rock climbing, whatever. And I was in college. But today, with prepping being so mainstream, you might be able to say, look, I want to be prepared in case if you're in a hurricane zone, that's what you would use, earthquake zone, etc. And just say, look, this is what I want, and I'm willing to bring this to you every 6 months to show you that I'm not using it, like especially with some of the pain meds.
That might be a tough one to, some of them class 2 narcotics or pain meds that.
You may not be able to. You probably get the antibiotics, and if you say, look, here, I brought the antibiotics, or if you took a log of any time you use them, whatever. I mean, it really depends on the doctor you have. Some are very, very pro prepping and being ready, and some of them will just think you're a wackadoodle. But I will say, though, you have to be very careful what you tell your doctor. You don't want to say, oh, I'm a doomsday prepper and I want to have drugs on hand. Don't do it. Don't say that, I want to have some pain meds in case I shoot my foot off because I go shooting every weekend. You don't want to say those things. You need to be very, very careful. But right. I have found that
you can tell them what go to FEMA's website. They are advocates of prepping as much as anybody, and you can say I want a 30, 60, 90 day supply, especially if it's something like an asthma medication. Right. Where you're not gonna. You can overdose on albuterol, but man, oh man, is it going to be a bizarre trip? If you did, you're gonna, your heart's going to explode, but it's going to take 500 times the normal dosage. But I certainly could see an issue if you're going to your doctor asking for pain meds. That's probably not going to happen. So you better find it over the counter. May not,
and I wouldn't even start there. I'd start with What I did is I did a lot of research, and I took it to my doctor, and I said, here, I want to be prepared in case I have a massive cut or a broken leg out in the wild and can't get to civilization again. I want to have some antibiotics and be able to take care of this. I did some research and I presented it to her with what I did. And she basically was like, wow, I can see you really taking some time with this. You're not just willy-nilly asking for this stuff. And she even added some stuff that I hadn't requested. And I'm like, well, what is this for? And she was like, well, inflammation and stuff like that. So she had even added to what I had requested. And no, I didn't request any pain meds, but if you ever have a legitimate need for pain meds, try not to use the whole prescription and store it. There's a lot of information about shelf life and expiration dates and stuff. And it's hard to find information about SLEP, the Shelf Life Extension Program. But basically what they found is that medicines, much like food, they stay good well beyond their expiration dates. There's only a few drugs that you can't use, like tetracycline and aspirin. When aspirin goes bad, you shouldn't use it and stuff. But a lot of the other meds, they're good for much, much longer than what their expiration dates would suggest.
Yeah, and some of the solutions, if you're talking pain meds, I mean, some of the solutions are over the counter. Right?
Yeah.
We were talking the break that there's over the counter. The ibuprofen, is some people it's very bad for, your wife and myself included. But it is without a doubt a very good pain reliever and anti-inflammatory. And these are things that that isn't. I shouldn't say they're not going to come in first aid kits, because a lot of times they do. But there's ways around, I guess, in some cases, not having to go through a doctor in order to do it. You're talking about some of them think you're wackadoodle. I'm sure some of them are, and some of them are, and will write the script anyway because they make a big fat wad of cash every time they do. Not that I'm slamming doctors who overprescribe, but we do absolutely know that that's a fact, that there's a lot of that going on. All right, listen, 5 minutes left to go. This has been rolling around in my head for the entire program. We get you on. I come on your program. We talk about a lot of natural disasters, a lot of unforeseen cataclysms that could be coming. What are you doing as a prepper? And do you ever give thought to this? If the preparation isn't to do with natural disaster, I mean, do you give thought on what if it's a complete tyrannical martial law clampdown of a Stasi-style police state? As a prepper, I mean, are you thinking? I know you're looking at the economic data that comes out, and I know you pay attention to that kind of thing. But do you make plans, or do you have plans to just get away from it, get away from government, get away from people, get your family safe, regardless if it's out in the sticks or maybe even fleeing the country? As a prepper, do you spend a lot of time concerned about the tyrannical police state that's coming up around us? Because in reality, it seems to be, at least in my opinion, that this could be a more likely outcome of events in the near future than any of the other things that we might be prepped for.
It's interesting that what we're concerned about today is very much the same of what a lot of people were concerned about in the 90s with the militia movement and the New World Order flags that were going up, and people were trying to get people aware of what was going on. So I would have to say that basically since at least the mid-90s, it has always been in the back of my mind to be able to get out of town, get out of Dodge any way possible. It's kind of why I've always lived on the periphery of cities and suburbs stuff. I always know where I'm at and where I can go. And I don't mean like on a minute-by-minute basis, but I mean as far as, okay, I live here, I want to go here. I have several bug-out places. They include actually lots of different people, depending on where I actually end up. I'm always trying to look for like-minded people and kind of develop a friendship wherever possible, so that if I ever need to go that direction, I have some place to go. And these are always usually, in rural areas, suburban outskirt areas, or even just out in the wild or in the field someplace that would make a good location to hole up for a while. Yeah, it's always been a concern. I don't think the government can absolutely lock down a city. The bigger the city, the more difficult it would be. I think they can do parts of it, but I don't think they can do all of it. So I'm not terribly concerned about getting stuck. There's always a way out. But my concern is that, just like you said, it seems that things are coming to a head, and it seems like it's happening faster and faster. Now, we had this issue in the mid-'90s, and it went away, and I'm hoping that's what plays out here as well. But you never know. I mean, look what they're taking advantage right now to push their agenda with guns. You know, what they want to push, it's not going to help. It doesn't solve the problem at all. It only makes us more vulnerable to these types of attacks. But they're going to do it anyways because they don't care. That's not their goal. So my biggest worry at this point is the number of idiots that are out there that actually believe this stuff. And what I mean by that is the number of people who actually believe that, oh, yes, if we banned all the guns, we would all be safer. I mean, that's so idiotic. I don't know how anybody can actually believe that. I know it would be nice to have that be a truth, to be able, I mean, I can understand how people think that way and wanting to live in a peaceful, safe society where you can't, or you don't have to worry about anybody breaking down your door and
that isn't going to happen.
Stuff like that. No, it's not going to happen. That's not reality.
It's absolutely not reality, and you're 100% correct. How they're going to use this crisis event in order to further agenda, and there's, you know, I firmly believe that there will be some piece of legislation and or executive order come out to try to start the ball rolling on complete and total control.
What I think they need to do, what needs to happen, is they need to arm the teachers and they need to disarm the Secret Service. Our politicians who think they think there's some kind of royalty, they have the benefit of having armed details with them whenever they want, wherever they go. They don't have to worry about pissing somebody off. You know, we don't have the same luxury. At the same time, they're taking away our right to defend ourselves. What is going to solve this is having our teachers armed so that anybody who goes into a school with the intent to harm our children will be stopped in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
Then we don't have this problem anymore.
Well, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last night. We're about to run out of time here tonight, but you know, look, if an insane individual, you know, first of all, nothing might stop them. They might show up there regardless of the case. But if you know you're going into a school and you know that the staff is armed because they're protecting, you know, 400 kids. Guess what? They're going to pick a different target.
Well, what about the Beslan that happened in Russia? Yeah, that will happen here at some point. If the terrorists know they can't get away with it, we protect our kids.
That's right. That's right. It's 100% right. All right. Thank you very much, Rob Hanus. His website is
Thanks, Charlie.
You bet. Thank you. ThePreparednessPodcast.com. Go over there, check out his work. You can download his material there and read what he's got. Rob, we'll get you on, you know, unless tomorrow or 2 days from now is the end of the world, we'll get you on again next month. I appreciate you coming on.
Awesome.
And thank you very much.
Thanks.
You bet. Guys, please enjoy Jeff Prince because he is coming up next. And I will talk to you all tomorrow night, the eve of destruction. Have a good night. Peace.